Well, we believe in the power of athletics. And so even, I mean, when you start to dig into the science behind athletics and what rigorous, say, high intensity aerobic activity does for the brain and helps with depression and anxiety and all of those things. And so it's just a really underutilized tool.
This is Shed Talk. Welcome back to Shed Talk, where we're going to deep dive into curiosity. Now imagine facing a battle that feels impossible to win. A battle against addiction and mental health challenges that threaten to consume you. Our guest today knows that struggle intimately and has made it her mission to prove that recovery isn't just a dream, it's a reality. Vanisha Breault, the unstoppable force behind the Terminator Foundation, is with us today on Shed Talk. You know what? Welcome to Shed Talk. Vanisha, correct?
Yes.
Breault.
Breault, yeah.
Breault?
Bro.
Bro?
If you're French and you can do the roll thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Breault.
Yeah. Yeah. I get corrected on it all the time.
So you must get your name butchered all over the place.
Yeah, I do.
Do
Both
you do?
first and last, actually.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on Shed Talk, because I know I
Thanks for
searched
having
you
me.
out and I wanted to have you on here, and you wrote a book.
Yes. Yeah. Ordinary Courage. So I did that. I think I'm coming up on 4 years ago now. November, December will be 4 years ago. I'm working on the second book now.
Awesome. And you started up Terminator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Terminator as being Terminator with the bodybuilding and Terminator
Well,
as an
no,
Arnold Schwarzenegger. No.
Yeah, no, not quite.
No. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Terminator.
So Terminator Foundation started it back in 2015. And so today what it is we've kind of coined the phrase ABRT, Activity-Based Recovery Therapy. And so we run a 12-week program for individuals struggling with addiction and mental health. And we use the 3 disciplines, swimming, biking, and running, as part of our therapeutic modality to help them recover from addiction and mental health.
So when you're dealing with addiction and mental health issues and using fitness as would you call it as a measuring stick or yardstick or as a means of success? Like why that particular element? Like why swimming and why biking?
Yeah, well, we believe in the power of athletics. And so even, I mean, when you start to dig into the science behind athletics and what rigorous, say, high intensity aerobic activity does for the brain and helps with depression and anxiety and all of those things. And so it's just a really underutilized tool, really, in the whole sphere of, because addiction and mental health is such a complex issue, obviously, right? And so it's one method, exercise, to help people recover. And why swimming, biking, and running? Swimming and running are 2 of the most proven, highly effective activities, exercises, forms of exercise that produce the greatest results, like especially when it comes to your cognitive. It's almost like having CBT and DBT wrapped up in an athletic exercise, swimming and running. Yeah, it's especially swimming, because it's so technique focused. So you have to think about what you're doing, right? And so it just helps. It helps with craving. It helps combat boredom. Just so many stuff. So we found them to be very, just really. It's like having a really awesome vitamin that's just packed full of all the best stuff. That's ABRT. That's our ABRT. It's packed full of the best stuff.
So when you're looking at this, and I'm going to deep dive into the mental illness, because you're using fitness as a great tool to go there, where people with anxiety, people with mental, just having a bad day. And I'm simplifying it as
Yeah,
having a bad day, because you get young people that are depressed, and it's like, get up, do some exercise. That's your first step. But you've taken it just that much. Well, you've taken it even further than just that step, because you've actually put it into a book. You've actually put it into a system to say, okay, this is going to help you change your life for the better.
Yeah.
And when you did that, where did you see the greatest success come from that? Especially young people. Because I understand your daughter, and you went through with your daughter, and then how you changed with your daughter going into from marijuana, and then all of a sudden having huge addictions. And where was that changing point for you and your daughter for fitness?
Like, why the fitness component?
Yeah.
Like, why, like where that came from, kind of thing? Like,
yeah.
well, I had started the awareness run for Terminator. Like, before Terminator Foundation was Terminator Foundation, it was just, I just wanted to raise awareness around youth addiction. And so, you know how we have Terry Fox and the CIBC Run for the Cure. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe if I start an awareness run for youth addiction. So I started that. And then, you know, we're kind of like 2 years into doing the run. Eden was still, it just went from bad to worse. She was out on the street. It was horrible. I didn't know if she was dead or alive. So I'm at this point, I've already been a few years into my own recovery from alcohol. And so I was already, you know, a few years into my sober journey. But obviously going through this with my daughter, it was heavy. It was depressing. You know, I had a lot of anxiety. Is she dead? Is she alive? Am I going to get the call today? Is today the day? Just learning to live with that kind of heaviness, and it was out of my control, you know? And so long story short, I decided in the midst of that to do a 70.3 Ironman myself. And so I was a runner already at this point in my life, but I couldn't swim and I didn't have a bike. All I had were my runners. And I decided I'm going to sign up and train for a 70.3. I didn't even really know what I was getting myself into. And I trained for this in 3.5 months, which is a little unheard of. And I remember the lady at the time that I reached out to ask if she would coach me and stuff like that. And, you know, it was a little embarrassing at the pool because they're like, oh, who are you working with, Cheryl, kind of thing. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. And what race is she doing that? And they're thinking that Cheryl's going to say she's training for just a beginner try or a sprint. And then she'd say like, oh, 70.3, kind of under her breath, like, because I couldn't swim. So it looked ridiculous to say, oh, she's training for a 70.3 Ironman, and I can't even make it to the other end of the pool, right?
In 3 months.
In 3 months. And so I say all that to say that was sort of the big transformative aha moment that revolutionized my own thinking, my own situation. It helped me rise above my own depression, my own anxiety, all the crap that I was going through. And pushing through that everyday training, pushing that pain through my body, not just physical, but emotional, mental, the anguish, the turmoil. Like I remember there'd be times I would be driving to the pool for a training session and I'm bawling the whole way to the pool because I'm so sick with devastation over I don't know where my daughter is. Like I don't, you know what I mean? And pushing through and training anyways and getting into the water and just crying and being like, Cheryl, I don't know if I can do this today. Like I feel like I have a 1,000-pound piano tied to my ass. Like I'm brokenhearted and pushing through it and just swimming anyways and doing it anyways. And so at the end of that 3.5 months, I competed and did a 70 and I did it. And I pushed my body to limits I didn't think were possible. I learned skills I didn't think I could learn. And so after that happened, and I remember going back to one of the treatment centers that my daughter was in and out of, and one of the girls that she'd been on the street with, and this one day she was like, "Oh, Vanisha, I hear you're training for this Ironman. That's so cool, and I'd love to do that one day." And it literally in that moment, Kevin, it was born. And I looked at her and I was like, "Really, Jilly? Would you really want to do this?" And she was like, yeah. Like, and I was like, "All right then." And so I did that Ironman at the end of July. That fall, I launched Terminator Foundation. And so over the years, it has morphed into what it is today, and stuff like that. But the transformation mentally, not just it's physical, obviously, but this is all mental. And you would know this, being in fitness, being in the fitness industry, pushing your body. You're pushing your body, but you're pushing your mind, right? It's your mind showing up when you don't want to show up, training when you don't want to train, training when it hurts, training when, you just had a fight with a loved one, or training when things in your life aren't going, you just got fired, you just got this or that, and you're pushing through, and you're pushing through the resilience, the perseverance, the grit, the determination. That is the magic that today is Terminator's ABRT.
That's absolutely amazing. And I want to deep down, even go a little bit further, because as you're getting in there, that determination and there was no stopping you to do it. When was that defining moment? Like you mentioned a defining moment right there. You said, okay, the light bulb went on and you were there. And you had an addiction before you got in, because you just got out of basically alcoholism, you were saying. When did you become more self-aware of yourself? Yes, your daughter's very important and very important to what was going on. But when did that time come that it was about you?
Well, I think that kind of came, more, even I had a deeper awareness of that because I was sober, and then I started to see Eden going down that same road, right? My young teenage daughter. And because I grew up in the era where, AA, stuff like that, right? And it's anonymous, right? And you're going to AA meetings in secret, in the basement of the church, in the back alley, and you pray to God, no one sees you. You're not talking, we didn't talk about mental health and addiction and stuff like that, right? And so, but when it started to happen to me with Eden, and, all of that stigma and the labels and everything, and the shift for me where I started to really look at myself happened when she started to go down that road, and I had to sort of like come out of the closet. You know what I mean? And I made that, I got angry at the stigma and shame surrounding addiction and mental health, because my daughter she's not just a junkie. You know what I mean? She's not just a waste of skin. She's not just all the horrible, derogatory, a loser, but like I could go on and on with it's horrible the way the perception of people that struggle with addiction, right? And she was not any of those things. And so that's when I started advocating. That's when I started coming out. That's when I started noticing the gaps in the system, and it was wrong and stuff like that. But I realized that awareness piece, I realized I had to come out. And I had to really look at myself. If I was really going to be able to help my daughter, I had to take a good, hard, honest look at myself. If I was going to have any success in overcoming or helping her to overcome, or, you can only take someone as far as you've gone, right? Yeah.
And when you looked in the mirror at yourself, okay, what did you see? Because at that particular time, you see your daughter, okay, and you want to be a role model, okay? Now I'm going to paraphrase or help me through this, because I really want to deep dive this, is that here you are, you're looking in a mirror at yourself, and you're wondering, okay, my daughter's in this turmoil. How do I lead? How do I become that that I need to be? Like what was staring back at you? And it's kind of like, is it disappointment? Is it love? Is it disappointment? Is it whatever? It's because you have to truly love yourself
Yes.
before you can love others.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and that moment in time on any addiction or everywhere else there's always an escape. We're always looking for something different, that quick fix, that whatever it is, when actually it's right here in front of us, our true love of who we are. When did that shining moment come to you?
Well, Eden, it was when I had to put Eden in treatment for the first time. And it was after multiple times of trying a whole bunch of other different things that weren't working, counseling, ADAC at the time, all these things to try to get Eden to stop, right? It wasn't working. If anything, her addiction was just getting progressively worse. So then I made the decision to put her into ARC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ARC, but it's Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center. So it's a youth addiction bed-based treatment program for kids 13 to 21. But the difference with this program is that the parents have to be involved. You end up running a recovery home. So you have other families, kids in your home while they have your kid. Like, it's a whole thing. Anyways, and so that was sort of the turning point for me, because I'm in this treatment center with my daughter who's struggling with addiction, with all of these other parents, and they're in there with their kids struggling with addiction. And you know how we are, right? As most people, we're very focused on our reputation, right? In the community is everything, right? So when you're, and our kids, it's almost like, this is what I found. Our kids become sort of like a badge of honor for how well we show up as parents. So if my kid is doing really good and they're honor roll and they're, on the basketball team and they're getting scholarships and they're just killing it. They're killing it out there. You know what I mean? We're all like, rah, look at me, rah, 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 right? But when our kid is like, well, my kid's an addict and they're skipping school and I'm getting called into the principal's office. It's not, no one wants to talk about that, because I must be a really shitty parent then, right? If that's my kid, right? And so how this came about, where it was like the long, hard look in the mirror, was I realized when I was in treatment with Eden, and because part of the process with ARC is that, everyone's sitting in this auditorium, and you'll have like parents' rap night where we're all sharing our stories with our kids and what it's like and what it's incredibly therapeutic. But you're standing on the wall looking out at all of the other parents when you decide to come up and talk. And I remember, because at this point in my life, I'm desperate to save my daughter. I'm desperate to save her life. And I realized I got to a place that I was so desperate to save her life. A switch happened for me psychologically, where I realized I made a conscious choice that I was like, I don't care anymore what I look like to you or any of you. I don't care anymore how good of a parent you think I am or not, or where you think I messed up or whatever. I don't care anymore. I need to get everything out. I need to take advantage of all of this where I need to look at myself and own what I need to own. I need to get on ugly truth. I call it ugly truth honest about everything, because my daughter's life is on the line. Now is not the time to give two shits about my reputation and trying to stand up here and minimize my parenting or downplay this or that so I don't look so bad do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That was the moment for me where I stood up there and I didn't give a shit anymore what anyone thought. I knew I had messed up as a parent. I'm not going to stand here and try to hide it or sugarcoat it or try to, I didn't care anymore. And that was it. All I cared about was I was prepared and ready to do whatever the hell I needed to do to fix myself, to take accountability for myself so that I could fully support my daughter without any of my own shit, my own baggage, my reputation. Be careful what you say, Eden, because we don't want to look bad. I didn't care about looking bad anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what shifted for me.
And it's interesting because you hit a real vein point there, and I actually hadn't heard before, where you call it the ugly truth. How do you deep dive into the ugly truth? It that saying is so powerful, and when you're looking at, and as a parent, and you look at your kids and they're growing up, and yes, we love our kids, yes, we want to we'll do anything for them,
Yeah.
But what is an ugly truth? And it's like, okay, am I going to tell my kids they're this, but the ugly truth is now I actually have to throw it back at myself. The ugly truth is that it's actually me and it's not you. That's why I want to know a little bit more about the ugly truth. Like, because parents and kids listening to this or they're talking, well, what is the ugly truth?
Like, okay, so I guess it's depending on what's going on. Like, I'm just trying to think of like an incident I can use or an example,
like I'm just
break it down. Like,
because I'm thinking more about the thing with when people are listening and they're talking and kids will go, oh, the ugly truth. Well, the ugly truth is, you know what, I'm bisexual or something. Well, is that truly an ugly truth?
Yeah,
or is that just a story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is truly the ugly truth versus storytelling?
All right. So the ugly truth will usually make you uncomfortable. That's one way to know that you know what I mean? The ugly truth is like, well, I don't really want to, do I need to tell all of it? Do I need to share all of it? Or can I get away with just sharing a little bit enough? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't want to totally look like, wow, did I ever screw up there? So that is the ugly truth. When you find yourself trying to find ways to get around the truth. So to tell just enough truth so you're still telling the truth, but not totally the whole truth. Not anything that's going to make you look ugly. Right. Not anything that's going to make you, well, they're going to think I'm a loser if I tell them. They're going to not, they're not going to think I really have it all together if I tell them this. Or they're not going to think I'm as blah, blah. It's some made up thing in our head that we believe that some perception that we don't want to damage your, wow, that Vanisha, she's a rock star. She's so awesome. She's so, you know what I mean? It's that ugly truth where it's like, yeah, it makes you uncomfortable to talk about it. It makes, you second guess yourself for wanting to share it.
Yeah. And then you so go back. So how many years ago? 10, 15 years ago this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so go 10, 15 years ago. Fast forward to today. Social media. Okay.
Yeah.
So now were you just back then introduced bullying? Okay. So we're going to talk, because that would have been bullying in the time as well. And then all of a sudden social shaming.
Yeah.
Talking where everybody's at, and mental health and anxiety was never talked about. Like AA, what was it? AA is for quitters.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like it's like what? And then it's like you would never hear that. Now it's like this is up and center for everybody to talk about and do it. And now social media is here. It is. It's in our face. Like talk about a whole transition period. And how does that affect with the way you guys are today? Like with the clients that you have at Terminator today. How they are versus back then, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the age of, we call them athletes.
Right.
We don't call them clients, we call them athletes.
Athletes, yes.
Yeah. And I think it would depend on the age of the athlete.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because some of our athletes, if they're like, say, 18 or 23, they are more wrapped up in that era. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like they're more... But if we're talking about some of our older athletes that are in their 40s and 50s, like they're more like us, right? And so I think even their relationship with social media and all of that is different. So depending on the age range of who we're working with, it's different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask another question is this, and it's kind of interesting because you're a runner.
Yeah.
Okay. The runner's high.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were talking about mental anxiety, and then all of a sudden, here you are, you're in your own head, you have to concentrate, and you become that, and then you hit that stage. Can you give me an example? Because you're obviously with the fitness and your athletes are there, you want them to get into there. Can you give me an example of what that's like as a runner's high? So people would understand what that is. Like, because there'll be a lot of people out there that don't run.
Yeah. So like explain what the runner's high feels
That
like.
runner's high because you're in anxiety, mental illness and depression, but
Yeah.
actually going into the run, and then all of a sudden you seem to find that your
Just
paradigms,
that clarity and
that aha moment that you're in yourself at that particular time.
Yeah. I know for me, so, going for a run or whatever, if there's some just heaviness stuff going on, like whatever. Usually within about the first, well, sometimes honestly, it can be within the first 5-10 minutes of just running where and I do think it's just the natural process of the body. It's not even anything that you mentally have to try to take yourself there. You know what I mean? It just is the way the makeup of our body and how it produces those endorphins and the dopamine and the serotonin. And it's just what it does all by itself. You know what I mean? Where you just start to feel better.
And when you're dealing with the Terminator, like with what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
it sounds like now it's less medication
Oh, yeah.
and more therapeutic, as in being at one with yourself and understanding your body and the food you put into it, the nutritional value of who you are as a Ferrari.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of, like, I say, like with Terminator and with what we're doing in Terminator. So, because a lot of people, when they sign up for the program, they hear the presentation, they sign up for the program, and then they have that, oh, holy shit, what did I just sign up for? Because they're like, they usually don't know how to swim or haven't swam since they were a kid, haven't been on a bike since I was 15. And a lot of the big joke is like, oh, the last time I ran, I was being chased by the police, kind of a thing, right? And they're like, I can't believe I'm signing up for this. They don't actually believe they can do it. They want to, but they don't actually believe they can. And the awesome part about Terminator is that we know they can. We know they can do it. You know what I mean? And so it's believing in them until they can believe in themselves. But they start to see that happen right away. And so it's almost like they're, for lack of a better word, it's like they're forced into having that mind shift. They're forced into it because they can't now unknow something that's happening. You know what I mean? Because they couldn't swim when they started. 2 weeks later, they're swimming. And so it's sort of like, holy crap, I'm actually doing this. This is actually happening to me. I can't believe I'm swimming. So they start, it's almost like it produces that shift. Like, maybe I can do this. And they start to think differently. They start to see themselves differently. They start to, and then they're 3 weeks in and 4 weeks in and 5, and then they're like, maybe I can go back to school. Maybe I can mend that relationship. Maybe I can get that job. Maybe I can go for that thing. Maybe that dream that I shelved and thought I was too old or too washed up or too whatever, maybe I can, because I didn't think I could do this.
And you think about Terminator, and you look at mental health, anxiety, and you've mentioned all those three, and we just talked about it. But this seems to be a recipe for just life in general.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
it's truly about each individual's passion and dreams. Like, because you mentioned there that I can do it. It's that little guy on the shoulder that's always said, well, you
Totally.
can't.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to have mental illness or anxiety or anything to do it. Just to say, hey, create your action plan with Terminator.
Yeah.
Where you just opened up a whole Pandora box about, I'm going to help you with this. But did you know I'm going to give you a gift of something much more valuable?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly kind of like what happens. It's like we use athletics to sort of just reintroduce them to their life. You know what I mean? And all of the possibilities. They are capable. They are more than enough. They do have what it takes. They are strong enough. They are resilient enough. They are brave enough. They are courageous enough. You know what I mean? They just, because addiction is a thief. You know what I mean? It steals your life. Addiction is not actually who you are. That's what addiction looks like on you. But you take it off and you're there. That the true essence of that person is there. And they do have what it takes. They are capable. They were always capable. You know what I mean? They just got caught in a lie. That's addiction, you know.
And it's okay to come out of it.
Yes.
And
you can come out of it.
Yeah. And come out of it and own it and be a part of life, humanity, and everything that we possibly ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know what? Thank you very much for being on Shed Talk. We usually have a Q&A at the end where our guests will ask a question. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So what was your transforming moment? Like, because you also seem to show up really big in your life. So how'd you get there?
One of the moments that the show up moment for myself was I was 240 pounds and my son, and I drank every day. From 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, roughly. I'd always have a buzz on and tension relieving or goal achieving, whatever we want to call it, or storytelling. But the one defining moment in my time in my life was actually when my son was playing football. And I'm living precariously through my son and going, oh, yeah, here he is. And we talked about you when you're talking about that pride and that honor of growing up. And my son was playing football. And I looked over at him and I said, Braden, come on, try harder. You can be hard. You can work harder than that. And he says to me, Dad, why don't you try it? And I go, sure, no problem. We got a trainer. And within 5 minutes, I couldn't do one lap. I couldn't do anything. And at that particular time and that particular moment was that, you know what? I'm not that in a bag of chips. You know what? If I'm going to move to the next level of who I need to be, I'd better start to look at myself and change. And at that particular time, it was one of those moments that I had to actually truly love myself to who I was, because I didn't look after myself physically, mentally, everything. I was just there present. But once you realize who you are and understand that it's about you inside, you love yourself, life changes.
Yes, agreed.
So that was my biggest gift.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Now you know. Shed Talk.